Good morning, y'all. How are you? We are going to begin Unit 10, which is basically area and volume. There's about 4 days of lessons. These are a little bit tough, so really focus. If you need to stop it and pause it and think for a minute, go ahead and do that. Remember, you don't have to print these notes. You can stick them on white paper. So we're going to talk about why we need this. Well, if I asked you to find the area of a shaded region, for this one, these are shapes you recognize, and you could use geometry because you'd say, oh, look, this is 3, therefore this is 3, so that's 6 by 9. So I could say, okay, the rectangle minus that little half circle would be the shaded area. So we know that the area of that rectangle is 9 times 6, so 54, minus the area of a circle, and a circle is pi r squared, but we have a half a circle, so it's going to be 1/2 pi r squared, so 1/2 9 pi. Now, you could punch that into a calculator, get the answer, no need for calculus. But what happens when we have something like this, where there is no formula? You don't have the formula for the area of a parabola or some other looking curve. So we use calculus, and it's very, very easy. We just take the equation for the top curve, right, from A to B. So we would say A to B of, that's f of x, right, minus, this would be this curve. We're still going from A to B, but that curve is g of x. So there you go. This is why we need calculus. Are you allowed to use a calculator? Absolutely. And where do we find this on our calculator? Math 9. Of course, we don't have that equation. We need the equation. If you need your calculator, go ahead and hit the pause button and go grab it. Okay, so our big formula for today is top curve minus bottom curve. The tricky part comes, you have to figure which curve's on top and which curve's on bottom, so you're going to have to make a quick sketch. So let's look at this. You know me, color coding is easiest, so I'm going to do my F curve in pink. So 2 minus x squared, that's like negative x squared plus 2. So I know that I'm up at 2, and it's a parabola upside down because it's negative x squared, right? And then I've got g of x, which is just x, and that curve looks like this. Well, if I could hit the center there, right, goes through here. So we can see that it's going to be pink minus purple, right? So I'm going to set up my integral, and I'm going to have 2 minus x squared minus x. Of course, I have parentheses around the whole thing, and it's a dx. My only problem is I need to know what numbers go on here, so I need the x value here and the x value here. How do we find those numbers? The intersection is easy to find. We simply say intersection. We set them equal to each other because at this point and at this point, pink equals purple, right? So 2 minus x squared equals x. Now, I don't like a negative quadratic, so I would scoot my x squared over to this side, and I'd have x squared plus x. I'd move the 2 over. Minus 2 equals 0. Then, of course, we're going to factor x plus 2. X minus 1 equals 0. So x equals negative 2 and 1. So we're going to go from negative 2 to 1. Now go to your calculator and use Math 9. Go ahead and hit pause, and you're going to type that in exactly like you see it, and you should come up with 4.5 units squared. So that's our whole idea for today. Today's not too tough, but we need to be really good at it. We're actually going to have a homework today and a homework next time with no new notes. so that you're really good, because you've got to practice sketching your curves, all that kind of stuff, so that the tough days aren't so tough, okay? So again, we're using calculus because we don't have a formula for geometry that will find the area in a parabola. So we do top curve minus bottom curve. Now, of course, just when you think, oh, this is great, of course, who do I throw at you? Of course, trig. Gotta have some trig, right? So let's look at f of x. Again, I'm gonna do my f of x in pink. And of course, you know sine starts at 0, and goes up to 1, then down to 0, then -1, then 0, right? And of course, it keeps on going. So I'm going to draw my curve. There's my sine curve. I use purple for cosine. Cosine starts at 1, then goes to 0 at pi. We must never forget our trigonometry. And this one told us where to go. There's many spots on this curve where we could find the area, but this is pi over 4 to 5 pi over 4, so that's going to be right here to right here, right? So there we go. So now we can tell we needed that because we know it's going to be pink minus purple, right? So I'm going to go from pi over 4. This time we didn't have to set the two curves equal to each other because they gave us where they wanted it to go. So if that's given, easy times, right? So it's going to be sine x right? Trying to make this look very color-coded so it's easy for you to see, right? So again, you're going to math 9, punch that into your calculator, and you should get 2.828 units squared. If we were in the classroom together, then I would have you integrate sine, and if you integrate sine, you get negative cosine minus cosine integrated is sine, and I would have you plug these in by hand, and we do a little bit. But since we're working remotely, you get to use a calculator. Woohoo! Right? Okay, let's try another one. What about, like, if you look up here, if I would have made you go all the way from here to here, you could see pink was on top here, then purple would be on top. What do we do if that happens? Well, let's look at this, okay? So we've got these two curves. So we need a quick sketch. Now your sketch does not have to be meticulously perfect. The whole purpose of your sketch is so you know which curve is on the top and which curve is on the bottom, right? And I made these a little bit tricky. You had to do a little work with that one. So let's do f of x. And I'm going to do that down here. In order to get a graph, we need to know the zeros. So we're going to have to factor that out. So this is x cubed. I'm going to factor out an x. Right? And we need to know where the zeros are, so we need to factor this. It's great practice. You know that 3 makes a 3 only with 3 and 1, and now you've got to try that 10. It's either 2 and 5 or 5 and 2. So if that's a 2 and that's a 5, I get 15 and 12. That doesn't work. So if this is a 5 and this is a 2, then that gives me 6. That gives me 5. I want it to be negative, so the 6 is negative. Okay, if you need any help on factoring, please let me know and I'll help factor with you, but that is a must. So x equals 0, negative, what is that, 5/3, and 2. So the point of this is so we can get our, so we are at 0, negative 5/3, and 2. Because it is a polynomial and it's positive, I know that it goes up on the right side, right? And that's as close as we need to be. Remember, again, the only thing you're trying to do is know which curve is on top so you know which curve to subtract from who. So there's my F curve. Now let's graph the G. This one's a little easier. 0 equals, we can take out a negative x, and we have x minus 2, right? So x equals 0 and 2. So same point here, same point here. So this one is going to go, right? So you could see we intersect here, we intersect here, we intersect here. All right, so the pink is on the top on the first curve. Purple is on the top with this second curve. So we're gonna have to set up two integrals, okay? We do need to know where these two curves touch each other. Where do they touch? If you look at that, they actually touch right there at -2. If you need to, you can set these two curves equal to each other to figure that out. So I can say, I'm out of room here. So if you need to, you could say 3x cubed minus x squared minus 10x equals -x squared plus 2x. Of course, when you bring this x squared over here, they're going to zero each other out. So we get 3x cubed, that 2 minus 12x equals 0. So I take out an x, 3x, and I have what? X squared minus 4 equals 0. So x equals 0, 2, and -2. So I know it's -2, 0, and 2. So I'm going to have to set up, right? I'm going to have to set up -2 to 0, because that's going to be pink minus purple. And I'm going to have to add to that 0 to 2, and it's going to be purple minus pink. So I'm going to have to write very tiny. So this one is going to be 3x cubed minus x squared minus 10x, right? Subtract -x squared plus 2x. And make sure that when you type that in, when you put this into your calculator, put parentheses around it, and then you're going to subtract from it because it's top minus bottom. You're going to subtract this one, put parentheses around it, and then you have parentheses around the whole thing with your dx. You'll punch that in. Then you're also going to do plus, and this time we have purple. We, of course, have a parenthesis that your calculator opens, but we have purple minus the pink one, and make sure you use parentheses. Okay, so it's a lot to type in, but you know, it's not too hard. You're going to go to Math 9 and you're just going to type that in. You'll do one integral plus the other integral because you want the area of this spot plus the area of this spot. This area is the pink minus purple. This area, purple minus pink. Okay, not too bad so far. Like I said, today is not that bad, but we want to be really good at it. Okay? All righty. So sketch a graph and find the area of the region bounded by the functions below. Try without a calculator and check with the calculator. Again, today we're using a calculator on the whole thing because we are at home and I'm not there to walk around and help you out in the classroom. So here we go. First thing we have to do a little graph. So This one's easy, x cubed minus x, so where would those zeros be? I'm gonna work up here. You guys know that I write way too big. Right? We're gonna factor an x out of this one, so x equals 0 plus or minus 1. True? So, and that is my F curve. Again, I like to color code. I think it makes it easier. Oh, G equals 0. What is that? That's like saying Y equals 0. So that is the x-axis, right? Okay. Now, I know that this is a cube, and I know it's got a positive x cubed, so it is going up, up. So it looks like that. And the only reason, again, it's just a rough sketch. The only reason we need it is so we know which curve is on top. So we want this curve, and we want this curve, right? Okay. So pink is on top, mine is purple. This time I have enough room. So we can see that we're going to go from -1 to 0. And then we're going to go from 0 to 1. Okay? And all you're going to put inside, right? What you're going to put inside there is pink minus purple. So pink is, and we're going to subtract purple, so -0. Now, I agree you do not have to type the 0 in, but I want you to see that that's what we did. Then this one is going to be purple's on top. The purple one's on top here, so it's 0 minus. And of course, we want this. Now, you can distribute that 3 if you want to and do 3x cubed minus 3x. It's easier than typing a bunch of parentheses, right? So type that in, and you can pause me, and you should get an answer of 1/2 units squared, right? Or 1.5, sorry. 1.5 units squared. Okay? Now we have been doing top minus bottom because your whole life you've been working with functions. In this unit, we're going to work with things that aren't functions anymore. Not necessarily, some might be. So let's just look at this. What if I give you a curve that instead of being situated to top and bottom, it has a right side and a left side? Well, just like we said top minus bottom, it is going to be right curve minus left curve. Now, there's something we need to pay close attention on this one. All the time you have been putting x values in here, all the x values, and it's been a dx. If it's, I think this looks like it's standing up tall instead of being kind of flat. So when it's this way, when it's when it's up and down, so we have a right side minus a left side, then we have to get y by itself, and it's going to be a dy problem. So let's practice one of these, okay? So both equations must be in the form x equals not y equals. Remember, your whole life you get x equals this, and you factor set it equal to 0. This time, we need it to be x equal, not y. So this one is good, right? It's already x by itself. This one is not, so we're going to fix it. And we're going to move that 1 over, and we're going to say x equals y plus 1. Now they're both in the form x equals, so we're ready to move. We got to graph these. Now, if you've forgotten how to graph this one, that's okay. It's really easy. Let me put, again, do your graphs have to be perfect? They do not have to be perfect. The only purpose of your graph is so you know who's on the right side and you know who's on the left, so you don't subtract them backwards, okay? So this is the same thing as saying x equals -y squared plus 3. So what you're doing is you're going over to 3, and because it's negative, it opens left. It's a sideways parabola, if you remember your conic sections. Ours won't be any tougher than this, so if you can just at least get that this tells you how far over to move it, and if it's negative, it opens to the left. If it were positive, it would open to the right. Okay, then this one, now you can graph from this equation. It doesn't, I want to be clear, it doesn't change the picture of what you're looking at when you rewrite it like this. It's still the same shape. It's just writing it like this will allow us to put our y's together. So what does that look like? Well, that's a straight line, right? And we're trying to find this area right here. So we know it's going to be pink minus purple. How's that for really good math lingo? Pink minus, well, I was looking at the screen and wrote my L twice. Okay, so it's going to be, and I'm going to continue to set it up, right? It's going to be pink. So let's do that together. Negative y squared plus 3 minus purple, which is y plus 1. And this is a dy. Okay, pay close attention to this. When it's a dy, you can only have the letter y in there. If you end up typing the letter x in, you know you forgot to fix somebody, okay? Now we need these numbers here, so we got to set these guys equal to each other. So we're going to say negative y squared plus 3 equals y, y plus 1. Okay, now I'm going to scoot that, well, I'm going to just write in green now. I'm going to scoot this y squared over to the other side because I can't stand to work with a leading coefficient that's negative. So y cubed plus y, and now if I scoot 3 over, right, it's going to be minus 3 minus 3. So it's going to be what? Minus 2, and that's equal to 0. So I just took these, added them to the other side. Now I'm going to factor y squared. I was talking about the 3 and I wrote a 3 down. Okay, you know how to do this. I have a y and a y, and that of course is going to be 2 and 1 because 2 times 1 is 2. Now it's negative, so I know my signs are opposite. I want a positive in the middle, so my bigger is positive. There we go. That gives me 2y minus 1y, which is y. 2 times 1, negative 2. Okay, so y equals negative 2 and 1. Why did I need that? Because I need to say that I'm going from negative 2 to 1. Make sure that you write yourself a note that these are, let me get a different color, y values. Okay, you have to use the y's. That's a big thing for you to remember, and this is really important. In a couple of days, we're going to have a lot of graphs that are sideways, and it's really important that you recognize that it's on the y when it's standing kind of up and down. When it looks like this, and you've got a right minus a left, not a top minus a bottom. So pause me, go in and make sure that you can type that in, and I came out with 4 1/2 units squared. Okay, hope this wasn't too bad. I think these are kind of fun. You get to use your calculator, right? So it's not that bad. Now, oh, I need to remind you, when you type these into your calculator does not know the difference between X and Y. So when you go to type this in, you've got to use the negative 2 and the 1 because they're Y values, but it's okay for you to use the letter X on your calculator. So let's type this 1 in together before I let you go. So we're going to do math 9, and I'm going from negative 2 to 1. And I go over here, and I'm going to tell it negative X squared plus 3 minus X plus 1. Your calculator does not know that that's the letter X. Your calculator just, when you type that in, your calculator just says, oh, you gave me a variable. Just the trick is these have to be your Y values out there. And then it's going to give you an answer of 4.5. Well, I hope you enjoyed our lesson. I will see you next time. Adios.